Thank you so much for joining this webinar. This webinar is going to be about a gaming platform for students called Gimkit. So boosting classroom engagement with Gimkit. I will be your presenter for today. All right, so description. So this webinar is going to be just a glimpse into what Gimkit is. It is a live learning game show for students, and there's many different game modes, and I'll get more into that later in the webinar. So our agenda for this webinar, we're going to talk about a few different things. So we'll do some introductions. I'll introduce myself. We'll go over our learning objectives for this webinar. I have some questions for you guys. I'm interested about what you guys do for gaming or for classroom engagement or just engagement of learners in general. We'll go through a tour of Gimkit. So I'll walk you guys through what exactly it is, the different game modes that are on there, and best ways to set up different platforms for students. And we'll actually do a live demonstration of the game mode, just so you guys can get a kind of a glimpse or a preview of what the website is like. And then we'll do some questions at the end, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys have later on. So just a little bit about me before we begin. So my name is Andy Barnes, and I'm a 6th grade literacy teacher. I've been teaching for 6 years now in Denver. I work in the same middle school that I've been working in since I was doing my student teaching. So I haven't ventured off yet. I have a lot of experience with different 6th, 7th, and 8th graders and their personalities. One thing that tends to be the most challenging is keeping them constantly engaged. So I don't know if there's any teachers in this chat right now, but even if you aren't, you probably know that kids can get fidgety and like to bounce around quite a bit if you're staying with the same routine and not really mixing it up. So kids like when you mix things up, at least in my experience, as long as you make it fun. So Gimkit is really cool in that it's not just one game mode. It's not just like you play the same live game every single time. It's the same pattern. You can mix it up on Gimkit. There's lots of different options you can choose from, lots of different settings you can use. So the kids appreciate the variety with that. And I use it all the time with my kids, and they absolutely love it. So that's my intro about me. Now we'll get into our learning objectives. So at the end of this webinar, you'll be able to do a couple things. You'll be able to explain the features and game modes that Gimkit offers, and you'll be able to set up a Gimkit account and host your own Gimkit sessions. Before I actually get into the tour of Gimkit, I do have some questions for our audience members today. So the first one is, do you use online learning games in your instructional practice? I realize that not everybody's a teacher in this chat. If you're not, then I'd like you to comment on instructional methods that you've used to engage learners or ones that you've maybe read about or heard about other people using. So if you could take about a minute or so and type in the chat box about any online learning games you've used in your instructional practice or other instructional methods you've used to engage learners. I'll give you guys some time to type in the chat box and we'll see what we come up with. All right, I'm glad nobody has done Gimkit. My one thing going into this, I'm like, oh, if somebody's already done this. Okay, I'm so happy nobody has done Gimkit. Yes, Joni, I used to use Kahoot all the time my first couple years, and After a while, the kids are just like, oh my gosh, mister, do we have to do Kahoot again? And then I'm just like, but you guys are playing a game. And then I realized, oh, I need to mix it up. You know, you could do a game, but if you do the same game every time, they're going to want something else. Um, let's see, Jeopardy Labs. I've done versions of Jeopardy on, I'm actually not sure what the website was, but it was a Jeopardy style game. Gimkit actually just released a new Jeopardy style game mode, and I'll show you guys that in a little bit. Yeah, the kids do respond to Jeopardy pretty well. Everybody does, right? Love that show. Wordwall, awesome. Flippity, I haven't heard that one, Amy. We'll have to connect about that one. All right. So thank you guys for taking the time to do that. Go ahead and move on. So at this point, I'm going to head over to gimkit.com. If you would like to do the same thing on your device, on your phone or on your computer, that's fine too. Or if you could just follow along here, that would be awesome. Either one is fine. So we're going to go ahead and switch to gimkit.com. All right. So as you can see, there's this thing called kits. Now, kits are basically different sets of questions that I've created or I've searched and I copied and made them my own. So when you log into Gimkit, I'll go ahead and log out and show you guys what it looks like. So if you haven't been to the website, it should look something like this. Now, with Gimkit, it is made for educators. So when you click educator sign up, I would recommend continuing with Google, or if you have a work email, your teacher work email, you should be able to move on. It's going to have you choose the school you work at. I won't go through those steps right now, but it will, if you want to create an account, it'll have you choose your school just to verify that you're an educator. And then it'll let you move on. With Gimkit, there is a free version and what's called a pro version. The free version has certain game modes, and the pro version has a lot more game modes. I believe it's $10 a month. If you use it a lot, then I would recommend it. I personally use it because I use it all the time because there's so many different game modes that you can use. It's really just your preference and if you like the website or not. So I'll go ahead and walk you guys through the website. So let me log back in. Get my teacher email. All right. So if you look over here, we got 4 different tabs. You got our kits. You can actually create assignments for your students. You can create classes. So if you have a bunch of different class periods, you can set it up like that. And on this tab, it shows all the newest updates that Gimkit has to offer. As you can see, they actually released a new game mode today. I got to try that one with my students later this week. It's like a game of tag. So we'll go back to the kits section. So if I click on, we'll go with the locations one. If I click on locations, it's similar to Kahoot in that you have to create questions for the students to answer. It could be true, false, it could be multiple choice, but you can create the questions. If I click on this first one, for example, you can see that I created these answer options and I did something similar with the rest of them. I like to have themes for my Gimkit games. This one's a location one. You get all these options over here. So if I want to play it, it'll take me to this menu. And this has all of the game modes that I've been talking about. So the whole idea is it basically combines what Kahoot is, and it turns it into another game within a game. So this tag one, for example, you're answering questions, and the more questions you answer, the more energy you get. The more energy you have, the better chance you have of tagging somebody. With the fish one, It's a similar concept in that you have to answer questions. The more questions you answer, the more fish bait you get. More fish bait you get, you can go to a pond and fish, and then you sell that fish for cash. And then whoever has the most cash wins. The classic version of Gimkit is mostly just questions, similar to a Kahoot style platform. There's also a team mode that you can do. And if you look right here, it'll say Gimkit Pro exclusive, and that's referring to the paid membership. So the Fishtopia one, in my experience, is the most popular one among students because it's so interactive. So they just moved that one to the Pro. There are some that are not Pro, that are free. The free ones, the tag one is free since it was just released. The classic one, the team one. If you guys have heard of the game Among Us, there is a game mode that is very similar to Among Us called Trust No One, and that is a free one right now. There's the floor is lava. Basically, the more questions you answer, the higher your bridge gets built, and you just can't get destroyed by the lava. So that one's an interesting one. Humans versus zombies. My students have loved that one. One team is the humans, one's the zombies. Again, you answer questions, the more you get correct, you get power-ups to defeat the other team. This one is probably the most unique one, called Draw That. Draw That it's similar to Pictionary in that you have to draw on the screen and you draw whatever Gimkit tells you. So if I was doing the locations Gimkit, and it wanted me to draw Denver, then you would draw something related to Denver, and then everybody in the classroom has to guess what it is. That one is pretty fun, depending on the Gimkit you pick. This one was just released. It is Jeopardy style. So if you're a fan of Jeopardy like I am, I'm sure you'll enjoy that one. This one is really cool. If you've seen any of the Marvel films, you know about Thanos. So basically, you have to collect all the Infinity Stones. And whoever gets all the Infinity Stones first wins. And to get the stones, you have to answer questions. And if I scroll down to classic twists, it's different variations of the Gimkit modes. And you'll notice you'll still see the Gimkit Pro exclusive tag on some of these, and some of them don't have them. Now, if you're interested in this, I would recommend just starting with the free version to see if your students like it, see if you like it. If you're like me and you love it, then I'd recommend upgrading, just because there's so many different modes you can choose from, and you just mix them up so that the students don't get bored. So that's really all the game modes so far. And then another cool thing is you can search kits. So if I wanted to look up, let's go candy. You can look and see all of the different Gimkits that were made about candy. Now, I would highly recommend looking at it first before you assign it to your students, just to make sure that the questions are appropriate and that they make sense. Sometimes I just pick and choose. I'll delete some questions, I'll add my own. But it's cool because let's say I want to add this one. Then I could just copy it, just click on copy, and then it will appear under my kits. So that's pretty handy, is you don't have to create everything. You can kind of just take whatever you want. And then if I wanted to edit it, just click on these dots right here, click edit. And you got all your questions. You can click on any of these boxes. Say I want to delete it. Those are deleted. And then if I want to add more, you could add a question over here, and I can add my own question. And then when you're all finished, you just click all done, and boom, you have your kits ready to be played. So I've got lots of different kits so far that I like to mix up. One that I've been playing a lot with my students recently is the literacy fun one. We'll go to, there we go. So we've been kind of doing a combination of all our different units over the last couple months. So I got a mix of Greek and Latin root words, got some vocab questions, got some grammar questions. You can add whatever you need to add. So it's not biased towards one subject. You could use this with any class: math, literacy, science, social studies. Heck, if you wanted to use it for a trivia, you could as well. Lots of options, a very flexible platform. So that's pretty much it as far as the website. Do you guys have any questions so far? Go ahead and check the chat.
I had put a question in the chat.
Oh yeah, thanks Nova. Let me see. Yes, great question. So in my classroom, the students have Chromebooks. So they play on their individual Chromebooks. If you don't have a Chromebook for every kid, then I'd recommend either having some kind of shared device. It is ideal though if they have their own device. Amy, are all kits public? I believe if you're able to just search it, like I just did, then I'm assuming that it's public. So if I was to create a kit, let's go new kit. Yeah, that's actually a great question, Amy. If you look up here, in this corner right here, if you see that little button, you can toggle it to be public or private. So I'll just make up a question. Just put something random. All right, get me out of this screen. If you click right here, you can change the privacy. So that's how you do that. Any other questions before we move on to the next part? Okay.
I have a quick question. So are individual student accounts required, or is there an option for just using a common link or something?
Okay, that's a great question. So all they need, it's similar to Kahoot. If you've played that, all they need is the class code. So we're actually about to get to that next part. But as soon as I go through and I set the game to be live, there's going to be a game code that I usually display on my TV in my classroom. And they just put in the code. And then as soon as they put in the code, they are in. So we're actually going to get to that right now. We're just going to do a very short demonstration. We'll go back to our locations. And I really like Fishtopia. So we'll go ahead and do Fishtopia. We'll just do a 2-minute trial run just so you guys can see how it works. So I would encourage you at this time to participate if you can. If you can't, that's all good. So if it decides to load. There we go. All right. So this game code, 707513, you're going to enter on this website, and I'll put it in the chat. It's simply gimkit.com/join. Gimkit.com/join should take you to this screen. And again, here is the code. 707513. And it's cool because once you're in, you can kind of move your character around. I know my students love just racing each other or playing hide and seek. It's a cool little waiting area before I launch the game. Looks like we're all in there. I'll go ahead and start the game. So what you have to do in this mode is you go to the center of the screen and you click return or enter, and it's going to start asking you questions. So this state is where the Miami Dolphins play. Florida. I got some bait. Which state has the Grand Canyon? Arizona. And now once I get my bait, I'm going to go over to one of these ponds. I can go to this pond, or I can go to the other pond. And I just press enter. And I catch my fish. And then once you run out of bait, you have to go back and answer more questions to get more bait. So you can see that the idea is to basically answer as many questions correctly as possible so you get more bait, so you can get more fish. And then you're going to go to the sell station and you sell the fish. And then eventually you can upgrade your items. So if you walk all the way to the far right of the screen, there are some power-ups that you can buy. If you go all the way to the top, you can upgrade your fishing rod and backpack. If you go to the far left, you can actually go to a different world once you get enough fish. But it's super interactive. The kids love just being able to move around, answer questions, interact with different objects. This one's my favorite mode, personally. And there's lots of different modes besides this, obviously, but this to me is the most interactive. And then once the game ends, it'll show a leaderboard. And then everybody goes nuts if they're not first place. So it's pretty fun. So I'll go ahead and go back to the lobby. So that's our short demonstration. Go ahead and exit out of this. Go back to our questions. All right. So questions. There's a couple questions I'd like you guys to answer in the chat box. So the first question, how would you incorporate your own content or curriculum into Gimkit? And then secondly, which Gimkit game modes would you use with your own students or learners? Give you all some time to type your response. Amy, yes, you can add images as part of the questions. Sound, I'm actually not sure. I know you can on Kahoot. I personally haven't added sound, but I actually haven't explored that either. I do know that you can add pictures though. One thing with the pictures is you want to make sure that their settings are not blocking the pictures from displaying. I have had that where they have some kind of Google setting where the pictures aren't showing up. So that's something to look out for. As far as adult learners, that would be super interesting. I know you have to select your school district when you're making your account, so I'm not sure if you can make one unless you kind of just make up a school. I wouldn't do that, but as of right now, I know it's tailored specifically for teachers and educators. If you guys can find a way to make an account without having to select a school, you guys could let me know. But I know as of right now, it's specifically for schools. It would be awesome to make an adult one. Oh, you answered. Oh, awesome. That's good to know, Molly. So you guys just got around that. If you're bored Friday night, hanging out at home, I'm going to make my own Gimkit. That's good to know. I haven't tried that with the other. So Amy, you'd use it for vocab and grammar. Yep, that's mostly what I do. I find it awesome, especially for review. If you go over a concept or go over different key terms and you just want them to memorize it. Amy, I actually haven't done the assigned homework function, so I can't really speak too much to that. But I would imagine that it's similar to Google Classroom in that you can assign, and I'm guessing you could set up some kind of game mode. I mean, I don't know why they'd put that option on there if there wasn't. That's something I do need to explore because I haven't actually gone through that one personally. Good question. Yeah, Megan, I agree. It's great for review, for quiz and test. Jeopardy is always a hit, at least in my class. So that's how I would use it for certain content areas. The fishing game, one thing I'll say is you have to monitor it to make sure they're actually answering the questions and not just running around. Yeah, Joni, great point. It's a great way for kids to engage. So I'd imagine that if they're at home and they have to review something, it's an easier sell to say, hey, get on Gimkit and review that way or practice that way. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move us along. Thank you guys for your responses. Q&A, does anyone have any questions, comments, anything I can answer about the game mode that I can try to answer? If not, that's all good too.
I just had a quick question. Since you use Gimkit a lot, how reliable do you find the site is? Do you ever get, when you've got all your kids piled in there, do you ever get frozen or locked, or
ooh, that's a really
does it ever
good
blow
question.
up on you?
There was an update they released about a month ago. I think it was due to the update and not due to the school Wi-Fi, but it was kind of glitchy. When they release new game modes, sometimes it can be a little glitchy just because it's new, but for the most part, it's really reliable and kids are able to interact. And at least at my school, the bandwidth hasn't been an issue.
Thank you.
All right, for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and move us along to the final step. So if you guys would not mind taking a minute or so to fill out this evaluation form, I'll go ahead and get that link for you guys. And I'll paste it in the chat box. So if you guys could go ahead and fill that out, that would be awesome. And I'll stick around for another minute or so if anybody else has any comments or questions. Thank you so much again for attending. It's nice to have an audience. I wasn't sure how many people I would have. And once you're done with the evaluation form, you can go ahead and exit the webinar. Again, I do appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much for being good audience members. Try Gimkit or not. I'm just happy I could share what I could. So thank you guys so much for participating, and I'll see you guys in class.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.